All right, so this is the test 3 review. It is, let me see here, sorry. It is 30 multiple choice questions. I might add an additional bonus question. And part 2 is 1, 2, 3, 4 like short answer questions and a bonus question on that as well. So like I did last time, I will sort of go through question by question and not give you what the question is exactly, but I will give you sort of hints on what to study. You absolutely need to study chapter 6, 9, 11, and 12. So read it. So also look at, there are notes posted on Blackboard, and you'll have notes from class if you've attended. Absolutely read those chapters. So if you read, even if you just read like a chapter a day, went over it, each chapter of course has headings. Go over each heading, and if you can sort of rhyme off the heading and then sort of give a synopsis or be able to sort of talk about what that heading is or what's in that paragraph, like you'll be in pretty good shape. Well, multiple choice, lots of times we study about recognition, which you'll remember from our memory section, which is one of the chapters we're being tested on. So some of it will be recognition, but some of it, again, I've made it so you need to actually know it and understand it to choose the right choice. And I am having tea, so for you tea drinkers that were saying last time about the tea, I guess pause this and go get some of your own tea. I don't know. Okay. So, we talked a lot about, not a lot, but we talked a bit about facial feedback hypothesis, so you need to know what that is. Motivation, sort of those external and internal, and this does this again, I don't know why, I apologize. Internal and external motivation. So sort of what are those things, and what are examples of those things, and what are they called? There's a couple questions that I've added in with just 4 different statements, and you need to choose what is the correct statement or what isn't the correct statement, and that is sort of over a vast array of things in all the chapters. So a little bit tricky, but again, if you do the work, you're going to get the grade, right? So stuff on personality. What's a stable personality predictor? What is that about? There's a question about Carl Jung. So we talked about him, and if you remember, he is the person or one of the first people who took Freud's work and sort of built upon that. So if you read that section in your text about him, you'll absolutely be able to pick out the correct answer. So psychological disorders. So if you know the difference between a hallucination, a compulsion, an obsession, or a delusion, you'll be able to choose the right answers, and that's for a couple of questions. Gives you a statement and then asks you to choose out of those 4 what would be the most appropriate answer for that, or the correct one. There is a question about conditional positive regard and about that. So remember the class where everyone sort of got a bit uncomfortable when we talked about self-worth and unconditional love, those things. So there's a question on that. There's a question on bipolar disorder. There's a question on seasonal affect disorder. There's a couple of questions on schizophrenia. So for that, you're going to need to know the difference between positive and negative symptoms. So you're going to need to understand exactly what that means. So if you can, in your studies, write down what a positive effect of schizophrenia and a negative symptom or effect of schizophrenia, then you'll be able, and you actually understand that, then you'll be able to choose the correct or the right answers from that. Yeah, positive symptoms, negative symptoms. The thick book I handed out and said that this is the tool that we use, or clinicians use, when diagnosing mental disorders. You're going to need to know the name of that book. So if you weren't in that class, you can touch base with one of your classmates. It was on Tuesday's class. Excuse me. So yeah, you can touch base with one of your classmates and see and see what book I handed out. You're going to need to know or be able to choose the correct answer out of a description. I'll give you the description and then you can do perhaps some of the work and figure it out. A person who feels little or no guilt, has no anxiety, doesn't fear punishment, and is in chronic conflict with those around them and in relationships and whatnot. So out of all the disorders, what would be the best fitting of that descriptor? And I've listed all of that. And again, it's A, B, C, and D. I did change it a little bit where a couple of them I have true and false, none of the above, and A and B or something like that, just to mix it up a bit. This is the third test of this class. So question about the big 5 personality dimensions, or probably a couple of questions about that as we go through. So know what those are, okay? Know when schizophrenia typically enters somebody's life. So if somebody's going to develop it, what would typically be the age range where they would do that? There's a couple questions about mania. Know your different eating disorders. That would be helpful. Know the difference between a borderline, narcissistic, and dependent personality. Be able to know what the definition of paranoia is. All right. So the last part of the multiple choice questions are around memory. So you need to be able to know all the sort of like, I don't want to say processes of memory, but your short term, your flashbulb, your long term, your sensory, like all of those definitions, know what they are and sort of what they mean, right? So know how they function, know the length of time that they would hold a memory for, things like that. Know what tip of the tongue phenomena is. Know what chunking is. Retroactive and retrograde influences on memory or definitions, know what they are. I did try to trip you up with that question, so definitely pay attention and make sure that you do know. And then the ink blot test at the end of, I forget what chapter it is. Anyways, find it, and you'll need to know the formal name of that, and you'll need to know if it's subjective or objective, and if you don't know what those two words are, then you need to figure that out too, because it's going to ask you a true or false question about that. So if you can figure out what it is and sort of more details about that, then you'll get that one right. I will be adding, I think the bonus question I'm going to ask is going to be, there was a question or a cartoon of an elephant that I had, or 2 elephants that I had in one of the classes. It was about memory, and I told you guys to write it down. So I think only about half of you were there that day, maybe a little bit better than half. So connect with one another, figure out what the elephants said in the bubble, and I know some of you wrote it down. I absolutely saw that. So as a group, try and figure out what that was, and then if you can add that, you can get a bonus mark. All right, so part 2, you're going to need to know different definitions of abnormal behavior and be able to sort of give me examples of what is deemed abnormal behavior, and give me a little bit of meat on that, because it talks about features and what that is, right? There's 6 terms that you're going to have to define. There is on page 198, there's a picture of 2 mice or rats, or I don't know what they are. So those descriptors of why one's really big and why one's really small, you need to know the terms of those and be able to describe those. Yeah. Another one's about personality and stuff like that. So I'm not going to give you all of those, but they're pretty self-explanatory. So I've given you a couple of hints there for the terms you're going to have to define or describe. And yeah, all right. So know your personality disorders. You're going to need to list the major characteristics of them. So I've chosen 3. So this section's worth 6 marks. So I've already given you the label of what they are. Not in this review, but on the test I've given you what they are. And then you're going to have to tell me about them. And because it is 2 marks, that means that it can't just be here's voices or whatever. You actually have to give me a little bit of, or demonstrate to me the understanding that you truly know a few characteristics of what that is, right? Yeah. So know a couple of theories of emotion. So go back to that. We did discuss that in class. And in your own words, you're going to be asked to describe that to me. So again, it's worth 2 marks. So you can't just put like the theory and then briefly, like I need a little bit more from you, right? You need to always demonstrate that you understand what you're talking about and you're just not sort of scribbling and hoping that I quickly mark through it or something. Sorry, that went dark. So, and then there's a fun bonus question that was on the board, but I didn't tell you guys it was a bonus question on Tuesday in class, and it had to do with some fictional fun characters from our childhood. So I only chose 4 of them. Pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy bonus question, and that's it. So that's your final test. It is next Tuesday, so I will see you tomorrow in class Thursday. And I'll send an email out right now and let you guys know that this is up and posted. And then, and it's not that bad. Like last time I think it was 22 minutes. This time it's only just under 12 minutes. Okay, so any questions, please bring them to class tomorrow, or if you're not seeing this until perhaps on the weekend, please feel free to email me or your peers or create little study groups, whatever you guys want to do. Everything from this test, or the majority of everything, is absolutely from the text. If you haven't been attending class, or you sort of don't know what's going on, or you've been sick or whatever, that's fine. You absolutely need to read the chapters, right? So chapter 6, chapter 9, chapter 11, chapter 12. Read them more than once, make notes, and study off that, right? If there is something I find what's helpful, if you don't understand it, you can't get a hold of anybody or whatever, Google it, right? So there's many different tools each of us have to absolutely get the information that we're seeking, right? But okay, so hopefully this is as helpful as the first one. And yeah, all right, I'll see you guys soon. All right.